Vasily was 40 years old when he met his second wife, Karina, who was 7 years younger than him. Karina was stunning, with a well-defined figure and a luxurious mane of hair that caught the attention of passersby. Vasily felt proud to have such a beautiful woman by his side. His first marriage with Spada had hit a rough patch when she started drinking heavily. Despite Vasily's efforts to support her through rehabilitation, Spada relapsed into her old habits. Unable to tolerate the situation any longer, Vasily decided to leave his wife. His departure also meant taking his son, Oleg, with him. Oleg, who was 22 years old and had recently graduated from university, was embarking on an internship at a promising new company. Vasily was immensely proud of his son's achievements. He had worked tirelessly in his own workshop to establish himself, save money, and build a reputation. With his workshop now running smoothly without his constant presence, Vasily was considering opening a second location in another part of the city. Vasily was introduced to Karina by a business associate. During a social gathering, Vasily noticed Karina among a group of women and was immediately captivated by her beauty. They formalized their marriage a year and a half later. Vasily knew he couldn't let a woman like Karina slip away, especially since she seemed to appreciate his financial stability and willingness to fulfill her desires. Their wedding was a lavish affair, with Karina indulging in every luxury. She took pleasure in flaunting her new prosperous husband to her friends. Karina preferred not to burden herself with household chores and often opted for delivered meals. Despite this, Vasily didn't mind, believing he knew what he was getting into. As their third wedding anniversary approached, Vasily broached the subject of starting a family with Karina. He longed to experience fatherhood again, this time with his beloved wife by his side. However, Karina hesitated, offering various excuses each time Vasily brought up the topic. Undeterred, Vasily remained hopeful that he could eventually persuade his wife to expand their family. One day, Karina approached her husband and requested a vacation with her girlfriends to go to the beach. Frustrated, she exclaimed, "But have you ever refused me, Kezul?" Disinterested, Vasily responded, "We can go together." Karina, however, insisted, "I don't want to go with you. I want to go with my girlfriends. Why is everyone else allowed and I'm not?" She stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her, causing the walls to shake. Vasily remained unfazed, aware of his wife's attempts to provoke him, yet determined to stand his ground. He trusted his instincts that he was doing the right thing. From that day on, Karina spitefully began spending as much time as possible with her friends, going to nightclubs, often resulting in Vasily having to retrieve her in a distressed state. It was yet another provocation. Karina knew the reason behind Vasily's previous divorce, and now she was deliberately emulating it to taunt him. Vasily affectionately remarked, "Silly girl," as he gently stroked his sleeping wife's head. He carried her into the apartment, helped her undress, and tucked her into bed. The next morning, he left for work before Karina even woke up. As he arrived at the workshop, his phone began ringing. Karina's name appeared on the screen. Choosing to ignore it, Vasily had his phone on silent mode. He was determined to teach his wife a lesson. That evening, Vasily called his son, Oleg, informing him that he had left his tablet at the workshop and would need it for work the following day. When Oleg asked why he couldn't retrieve it himself, he shyly admitted that he was at a bar with a girl and couldn't leave. Vasily chuckled and wished his son good luck on his date. Arriving at the workshop, Vasily used his key to open the door. He thought he heard some noises but dismissed them, attributing it to the lack of soundproofing in the garage complex. As he looked out the window, he noticed his business partner's car parked in the client parking lot. Vasily tried calling his partner, but there was no signal. Ralph did not pay attention to Nicholas' presence in the parking lot, thinking that he had taken a cab to the restaurant. However, when he heard the repeated sounds, Ralph realized that they were coming from his office and not from behind the wall. Puzzled, he decided to look into the situation. Opening the door to his office, he saw two figures. In his haste, Ralph fumbled for the light switch and illuminated the room. To his shock, he saw an oil painting of his wife lying on a table with Nicholas standing over her with his pants down. Thoughts whirled through Ralph's mind. He let out a roar and lunged at Nicholas, grabbing his chest. Karina hastily retreated to a corner of the room. Ralph, overwhelmed with anger, continued to confront Nicholas, pinning him against the wall. Despite his physical superiority, Nicholas seemed too stunned to resist. Karina in the corner intervened and revealed that Nicholas had been invisibly present in their lives for the past year, unbeknownst to Ralph. Karina blamed Ralph, claiming that it was his fault for not allowing her to go on a trip with her girlfriends. It turned out that during her constant disappearances, Karina had met Nicholas at clubs, and one of those meetings had proved disastrous for their marriage. Still breathing heavily, Ralph loosened his grip on Nicholas. Nicholas hastily dressed and without a word left the room. Ralph was alone with his wife, who was sitting in the corner clutching her purse. Her disheveled appearance, smeared makeup and traces of lipstick behind her lips gave her a pathetic look. Ralph pointed to the door and said, "Come out and go home. You may not come back. I will personally deliver all your things to your mother." Upon reflection, Ralph realized how wise his lawyer had been in insisting on a prenuptial agreement with his ex-wife Karina. Thanks to this agreement, Karina would be left with nothing, just as she had come into his life with only a suitcase of belongings. This was a definite plus for Ralph. At first, Samuel, Ralph's son, felt guilty about sending his father to the workshop that fateful evening. However, Ralph managed to convince him otherwise. He was glad that everything came to light, because he could not imagine how long Karina could deceive him and devastate his finances. After the divorce, Karina hoped that Nicholas would accept her into his life, marry her, and start a family together. To her surprise, Nicholas had no such intention. He did not want to live with her, nor to tie himself to the bonds of marriage, as he quite enjoyed his status as a bachelor. Any woman realizing Nicholas' financial situation was willing to do anything to be with him. He laughed at Karina's proposal and offered an alternative: to remain one of his many companions, receiving in return financial support. Having no work experience, Karina had no choice but to agree and live as a kept woman. However, Nicholas was not a caring husband. He gave only money and did little to fulfill her desires. Karina remained deeply unhappy. At one point, she began to miss her ex-husband, but he was too absorbed in his own life. Short-sightedness and vindictiveness of Karina played a cruel joke with her. After all, secrets sooner or later come to the surface.